think we'll go ahead and get started. As others come on board, I'm sure they will catch up. I appreciate again your participating in our session this evening entitled Top 10 Social Media Management Tips for Entrepreneurs. I will introduce our guest just a moment, but first let me introduce myself if I may. My name is Dave Callan and I am a volunteer mentor here at SCORE, and I'll serve as this evening's moderator for our session. As I said, I'll introduce our speakers momentarily, but before I do so, I do want to spend just a few minutes up front to introduce you, our webinar participants, to SCORE and also cover a few housekeeping items. So let me go ahead and get that underway right now. All right, just a few minutes on SCORE, if I may. So SCORE was established nearly 60 years ago, and we serve as a resource partner for the Small Business Administration. SCORE is made up of several thousand volunteers across the country, and here in the Chester County and Delaware County area, we have over 100 volunteers. Through our volunteer network, we deliver free or virtually free mentoring to businesses at all levels of maturity, whether that's at a startup level and it's just a business idea, or all the way through to businesses that are up and running that may just need to have some additional guidance. Okay, and so as I mentioned, we have over 100 volunteers here in the Chester County and Delaware County areas, and we do a lot of business mentoring for small businesses, obviously, at various stages of their maturity. And our mission, simply put, is to foster vibrant small business communities through confidential mentoring and education. Now, we're certainly delighted that you've taken the time to join us this afternoon for this very informative session. And now let me just touch on a brief bit of housekeeping, and we will go from there. Okay, so this session is being recorded. If you're not comfortable with that, I encourage you to drop off the call at this point. But we do record these calls so that we make them available to you in case there's something you missed. We want to make sure that you have the opportunity to focus in on our speakers and what they're saying, and that way you don't have to take a lot of notes as an example. Your phones, as I mentioned earlier on, have been placed on mute. That's to avoid any distractions. So our speakers are all unmuted, and you will have the ability to ask any questions using the Q&A feature in Zoom. Again, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, it's typically at the bottom of your screen, depending upon the position of your screen, and you can type your questions in there, and we will monitor those throughout. We'll have a couple of breaks during the presentation to make sure that we have time to address the questions. Whatever questions we cannot get addressed live, we'll take note of, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that you get an answer to your questions sometime shortly after the event is over. If you have any comments or just want to make any references, not questions per se, we encourage you to use the chat box. That might be an area where you want to put in something. If there's a finding or a website, for instance, I'm going to use that a little bit later to point you to an upcoming webinar, for instance. So again, the Q&A sessions as well as the chat box. All right, so that's enough housekeeping. Let me go ahead and introduce our first speaker, if I may, and that's Samantha, or Sam Bardaric. And Sam is a business outreach and career librarian with the Chester County Library System, a position that she's held for nearly 3 years. Sam is based in the Exton, Pennsylvania branch, and she happens to also be a member of SCORE. She connects community members to the best databases, guides, books, community organizations, websites, and other resources for starting or growing a business, navigating a job search, or even building career skills. Sam earned her master's degree in library and information science, and we are delighted that she's with us. So Sam, let me go ahead and turn the podium over to you and introduce us, if you would, to the resources available through the Chester County Library System.
Yes, thank you. Just want to make everyone very, I'm going to take just a minute and let you know what we have available. We have tons of resources to support you as small business owners, or if you're looking to open a business. You should have access to these slides after the program, and they are linked to the Online Business Center, which includes we are a library. We do have books, but we have so much more. We have a lot of databases. We have 2 different calendars, one for library specific events. We do some business related events through the library, but also a community calendar that I curate, and I put in free workshops from 15 or so different organizations all onto one calendar to make it easier for you to find what you're looking for, as well as lists of local, national, and international organizations and websites that can help you as well. So that's all on our Online Business Center, ccls.org. It's all linked to on this slide. The databases that we have are really good to help you get the data that you need, the context on your particular industry that you're looking into. So Reference Solutions is the #1 database that I use with entrepreneurs, and that's where you're going to really be able to drill down into local information on who your potential customers are, who your competitors are, get the demographics, get the revenue ranges, find the different types of businesses, whether you're looking to see if they're a competitor and where they are in the area, or if you're looking to market to them, you can find certain types of businesses and get their information. And the Reference Solutions database is fantastic because it has graphs and charts and maps, including heat maps, to really show you all that data that it's gathering in a way that's easy to understand. We also have the Business Plans Handbook, and that has full text examples of real life successful business plans. So you can keyword search within that handbook and find business plans similar to the one that you have, business that you have, or the one that you want to open. So you can see what type of information they used, how they laid it out, the different sections, and download it in PDF and use it from there. Gale Business Insights, again, you're going to get lots of profiles, reports. It'll give you a list of associations within your industry, a lot of contextual type information. That's just a brief run through of these databases, but they are really good, and we do have them, and they're free at any Chester County library, and you can access them from home for free if you have a Chester County Library card. Like I said, we offer a lot of workshops. There is a monthly newsletter that you can take a look at on that link to see what the past editions have included and sign up for it there if you would like to. We have a LinkedIn page where I post daily on different business and career related topics. And that link for one-on-one assistance is to make an appointment with me. I'm meeting with people virtually right now, but they are free, confidential meetings, typically 30 to 60 minutes. And I can show you whatever resources you need for your specific questions, and even getting really in depth into any of the databases, depending on what you are looking for. So please do reach out to me with any data needs. Even if I end up just we don't have something that you need, I have a good foothold in the community, and I can give you other resources that can help you. So please do reach out. Are there any questions now?
I don't see any questions in the Q&A box just yet, Sam, but I want to, first of all, I appreciate you spending a few minutes to introduce us to the resources that are available. To our listeners, to our participants, if you'd like to hear more from Sam, she's actually presenting a webinar next Thursday. That's April 28th at 10 a.m. And the title of that webinar is Customers and Competitors Getting the Inside Data. And I will add that to the chat so that you can link directly to that and enroll. That is, again, a free seminar or webinar. And as Sam mentioned, she is available through virtual sessions right now. Personally, I can speak to and attest to the fact that I've sent clients to Sam, and they've come back very surprised and very appreciative of access to business plans and things of that nature, where they can get a sense of who's doing what in their geography, their targeted geography, or even comparable businesses that might look similar to them. So, Sam, thank you again for joining this evening.
Thank you.
All right. So let me now introduce our featured speaker, and I am going to stop sharing and let our guest do so. So our guest speaker this evening is Carly Simon, and Carly has dedicated 25 years to helping businesses and nonprofits grow their brand and marketing strategies, building customer relationships and increasing website and foot traffic. Specializing in adult education, Carly enjoys connecting entrepreneurs with the best resources to launch their businesses and increase their business success. A former Small Business Development Center consultant, Carly is now an international business marketing executive for Taylor and Francis research journals. She writes online marketing courses for universities, and she has her own consulting business, C. Simon Consulting. At this point, let me turn the platform over to you, Carly, and take it from there if you would.
Thank you so very much, Dave, for having me here this evening. It's always a pleasure to work with the Chester and Delaware County SCORE. And I was also very pleased that Sam was also going to be here on this call, because when I was a Small Business Development Center consultant, I've collaborated with both SCORE and Sam, and they are just so extremely helpful. And I can't encourage all of you enough to go out and just seek their knowledge and their resources. Thrilled to be here this evening to share with you some of the information I have learned about social media over the past 25 years. So what I'm going to do in a very brief way is share with you the top 10 social media management tips that I think is going to be crucial to help you, your business, or your nonprofit venture grow. Management is definitely different than strategy. With management, we're going to be talking more about, social media management tools, scheduling. We're going to talk about reports and so forth, where strategy is more of along the lines of, what kinds of content am I going to be creating? So you had heard my introduction earlier. Yes, I've been doing this for 25 years. Time has definitely flown, and I'm really here to help you save the amount of time that it took me to kind of navigate the marketing and ever-changing social media world. So I've done everything from sales to donations, events, and I've worked both with nonprofits, small businesses, as well as corporations, particularly with my current position. My degree is in psychology, so a lot of what I have done with my marketing strategy, coaching clients, is very much rooted in psychology and how can we motivate that consumer to do that action you want them to take in regards to your business. And then lastly, I've had the pleasure of working as a consumer behavior textbook author. In fact, I'm in the middle of revising it right now, and it's just a really great opportunity to really find out the different cognitive and social influences that make our consumers engage with our social media or go to our virtual or physical storefronts. So I kind of want to know more about you. And so I want to make sure that what I'm presenting today, although again, it's going to be more in social media management, and each of these tips can be its own presentation itself. I want to make sure that you're walking away today with information that's going to help you. So I'd like to get to know you a little better. So if you can open up the chat box and let me know, first of all, are you a nonprofit or a for-profit venture? That'll also help me kind of share some anecdotal stories that may help you a bit more. So go ahead, and if you can, feel free to type in the chat box, are you for-profit or nonprofit? And while you're doing that, if you also want to talk about the industry or sector that you're in, and I've worked across many as well, that would be really helpful in terms of making sure I can perhaps kind of personalize and customize the presentation a little bit better.
So Carly, what I'm seeing right now is those that have responded so far are principally for-profit. We have a variety. We have some in the financial industry, retail, photography, a couple familiar names and faces on here. Thank you. Substance abuse education for families. So there's a nonprofit. We've got another retail. So a kind of a mixed bag, a personal chef and caterer. Mostly it looks like for profit, although some have profit and nonprofit. So a real good combination this evening.
Okay, wonderful. I have worked in retail sectors for marketing, libraries, arts, and then of course, being a small business development center consultant, worked across the industry sectors as well. Phenomenal. All right. I definitely appreciate all of your chat contributions there. And then I want you to think about what your expectations were with coming into this webinar. So what was one thing specifically in regards to, again, there's a difference between management and strategy. But if I see a lot of, hey, I want to learn more about this, I know to concentrate more on that aspect of my presentation. So what would you like to learn today about social media management? So I want to make sure I know your questions ahead of time. That way you don't potentially forget them at the end, because it is a lot of content.
Techniques on social management, social media management and tools. There's still some people weighing in on profit versus nonprofit.
Yeah.
10 key things to do. That should line up nicely with your deck. How to reach more people, how to drive more traffic from social media to websites, established websites, ways to target audiences in your messaging. What would be the best platform to manage more than one business account? Another one on best platform, and maybe even some information about customer demographics, like their age as an example. I missed one up here. I'm a social media novice. I know nothing. I need more followers. So it runs the gamut, as you might expect this evening.
Absolutely. And let me just talk to all of you. I was a social media novice 10 years ago. And again, look at the amount of time. So now, here I am working for an international research journal company. So what you learn about with social media to make sure you can have your own learning experience as you're progressing. It can be done, and things are evolving, even with myself and my organization that I work with, different members of our departments are kind of experts in one area, and some of us are novices in other areas. In terms of what I'm seeing that you'd like to get out of the presentation today, definitely what we can talk about today is talking about social media management and platforms. I can give a little bit of anecdotal experience with that. I've worked with several. In terms of, how to reach more people, ages for each of the platforms, that's going to be kind of more of like a social media strategy presentation, which I have. And obviously I would love to have SCORE have me back and help guide you in regards to that. You can also feel free to email me or connect with me on LinkedIn after that, and I can, kind of help connect you with some resources. And then also I see driving traffic from social media to website, and that is kind of both strategy and management. And it's very, very important to ensure that what you are doing on social media, right, is a good investment of your time. And that's actually one of the first things we're going to be talking about today. So these are a few of the topics we'll be discussing today, and kind of my top 10 that I felt were really crucial in empowering me as a social media marketer. So do you have the time? So when I was a small business consultant, one of the biggest things that I would talk about with clients in terms of, kind of what their worries were with balancing everything. Who specifically is doing your managing, checklists, content calendars? We're going to talk about SMART goals, exactly what goes into your budget, tracking the metrics, and navigating management tools. So I'll be spending a little bit more time on the management tools, since I know that's kind of one of the areas that it seems you'd like a little bit more help with. So number of hours you should spend on social media. And that's definitely going to vary if you are a solo entrepreneur, if you're a small nonprofit, or if you're a corporation. Even as a marketer myself, there's so many different marketing activities you can do, from public relations, etc. As a full-time marketer, and not just full-time social media. So what I do with my current position, I'm pretty much full-time social and digital media. When I was working with my small nonprofits, I was a full-time marketer, and I could only spend 5 to 10 hours a week on social media on top of everything else. But you want to make sure that you're investing your time wisely. So taking a look at the percentage of time that I'm initially recommending for you to spend on social media. So 5% of your time should be engaging with customers, and what exactly does that look like in terms of responding to all of their comments, fielding questions in your social media inboxes, 25% of time researching and planning strategy, which again, if SCORE has me back for a social media strategy presentation, we can definitely talk about what that consists of further. 20% of your time should be creating and curating content. So not just even making content on your own, but finding content on the web or on platforms and sharing from other pages and channels. 10% of time for team collaboration, even if you're, again, solo nonprofit or for-profit venture. Team collaboration in terms of partners, influencers, even picking your family and friends' brains, or even surveying your customers. 10% for that team collaboration. And finally, to make sure that your 5 to 10 hours of time is actually worthwhile, making sure that you're making the time to analyze the posts that you've done, because if you're not getting the reach, the engagement, the driving traffic to your website, then you need to experiment, right, and try that again. So that was tip number 1. And what I kind of want to reinforce here with this quote is that social media is not just an activity, it's an investment of time. So you want to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who not just only support you and stay with you, but inform your thinking about ways, and this is the key word, to wow your online presence, period, whether it's social media, your website, your Google ads, your Google profile. So connecting with those customers and influencers and community partners that are really going to help you think of innovative ways that when somebody takes a look at your post in their social media feed, that they're going to stop, you're going to grab their attention, and you're really going to wow them. And that's going to help create that loyalty and retain them as a customer, as a donor, right? So let's think about what's going to be my tip number 2. Before I talk about what I think your social media manager qualities should have, because some of my coaching has involved helping advise clients like how they should go about recruiting a social media manager, whether it be a paid for staff person, a contractor, a volunteer, a family member, or even yourself. What qualities should you have as a social media manager? So I'd love to get kind of an initial impression of what you think that's going to look like. So feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat box. What's one quality that you think a social media manager should have? And this is really key to being successful with your social media strategy, is to make sure you have either the best social media manager, whether it's a couple different employees, one employee, or yourself.
So Carly, I'm seeing experience, being friendly and engaging, being able to manage oneself in the 24. I guess that means being able to sort of schedule your own time and within the 24 hours we have available, right? 24 hours, yep. knowing how to connect with people, being resourceful, being creative,
Mhm.
being knowledgeable, reliable, being able to work independently with minimal supervision, being able to follow through on detail,
Okay, great.
knowing who your target audience is. Yeah, some real good feedback here.
Fantastic. A lot of you are going in really the right direction, particularly when it comes to social media manager traits, right? You know, knowledgeable, reliability, curiosity, creativity. Those are all really important traits. And then we also have kind of your qualities and skill sets, right? So as a social media manager, you're wearing a lot of different hats. And so, for example, with that copywriter, what would tie in trait wise with that would be that curiosity element. So, to make sure that you're going to be successful on social media, you need to make sure either you're training yourself or you're hiring somebody who is a good copywriter. So, you want to make sure with a lot of these different qualities that I'm sharing with you here that when you're trying to recruit a social media manager who is not you, that you're taking a look at their portfolio, that you're taking a look at sample, content posts that they've written, sample ads, to ensure that they're an engaging copywriter. It's a very big learning experience. A lot of times I've had clients where they're either repeating the same words in their posts, they're using all capital letters. And it's also challenging to find out how to do that storytelling. And so if you hire a copywriter, that's also going to help really shape your brand voice as well too. And all of those elements are going to drive engagement and eliminate those generic posts that aren't going to get a lot of comments or likes or even shares. So having a social media manager, copywriter, or training yourself on good copywriting is a really good first step for a social media manager. What's really huge right now is a multimedia producer with TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter all shifting to videos, GIFs, and things being a very high quality photo content. It's really important, again, that you're looking at that social media manager's portfolio in terms of how are they taking photos, samples of videos, are they engaging on video, can they speak eloquently? And if it's going to be you, making sure that you are practicing camera angles, getting the right equipment for lighting, taking a look at what videos perform well, right? And how those videographers also tell stories and use lighting to ensure that you can see what other competitors are doing well that perhaps you can spin for your own brand as well. And having a good multimedia producer is going to help have more of that click through and generate more leads as well. And then one of my specialties is being a news curator. So, you can have a good copywriter, you can have a good multimedia producer, but if you're not capitalizing on what people are talking about on the social media platforms, in the news, you may not quite get as good engagement or as many shares. So this is where we're talking about, so for example, when I work at the library, so what kind of special holiday is going on right now that people are talking about? I think at one point there was a special lunar moon phase that people were talking about, a lunar eclipse, and so I would share posts about that. At one point, what was her name, Marie Kondo, who was doing the organizing, I would do memes in regards to that. But again, making sure that you're staying relevant, right, and that the news that you're sharing ties into your brand as well. But definitely I have found that when you are sharing news, tying it into that brand, that will increase the shares, and then that will increase the reach of people coming to your page then, versus kind of you're only getting likes and comments. That's kind of staying very insular to your own individual page. So other social media management qualities you want to have are customer service rep. So ensuring whether it's yourself or it's an employee that you're empowering yourself and your employee with different strategies and messaging to handle customer service inquiries, whether it's comments, whether it's through your message inbox, and making sure that you're knowing how to handle both positive and negative comments, and also making sure that you're taking those potentially negative conversations right off the social media channels and funneling them to a special customer service email. This is why it's also really crucial for that time you're going to be spending that you're responding to those comments, and people are more likely to reach out to you on social media and not even necessarily in your inbox or on your page. They could have questions that they're talking about in other social media groups or pages or platforms and mentioning you that you may not even know about. But you want to make sure that your social media manager has experience with that. Another great quality to have is community manager. And this is what's really going to give value to your page, because what do your consumers want more than anything else? This is why you're seeing a lot of, say, your family and friends, right? I think I saw like a baker, here in the chat box. This is why you're seeing, people going out and sharing photos of them enjoying their favorite food with family and friends. People want to feel like they're part of a community, whether it's a community that you're creating, showing through photos and testimonials about your products and services, involving your community partners with helping that sense of community as well. I can tell you one of my most successful posts that I saw a client using that I encouraged them to kind of repeat was helping out a customer who was having a hard time pushing a cart in the middle of a storm. An employee went to help them, and that was one of their most active and engaged with posts and shared viral posts, because it was a brand giving that sense of community. And then lastly,
Hey, Carly. Carly, I'm
yes.
sorry for the interruption. I'm not sure that your screen has advanced. So there we go. Now
Are we seeing it now?
I think we're in good shape now. There
Excellent.
was one question. I don't know if you can take it now or if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to
you.
interrupt me at any time.
There was a question that came through. It says you were previously talking about a production, video production and the like. And the question was, what type or types of apps are used to edit and create videos?
Excellent. That's a very good question. And I will actually be touching upon that in our last number 10 tip with the different social media management platforms. And so I will briefly talk about some of the video apps that I have talked about. So I'll make sure to concentrate on that for number 10. Excellent
Wonderful.
question.
Okay. So Tiara, stick around till number 10, okay?
Yes. And then the last social media quality, again, you want to make sure the investment of your time is beneficial, making sure that you understand funnel marketing. So there's actually parameters you can put on your website link. It's called a UTM string, and you can actually track how well you're doing with a social media organic post, right? With a social media paid post, to make sure that when you're looking at your website analytics, you can say, oh, I'm getting that traffic right as a result of my Facebook ad campaign that I did. So making sure that you're understanding all the different levels of funnel marketing that there is, from attract to engage to convert then. So tip number 3, so I really want to empower you with making sure that you have a checklist. So definitely keep this slide handy when you get this as a follow-up in your email to kind of make sure the top things you should be doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Out of everything you see on the screen in your daily checklist, make sure that you're replying to everybody and checking your mentions out of all the things that you're seeing on the screen right there. I know we have about 20 minutes left, so I want to make sure that I'm hitting upon all the 10 tips. Now, from a weekly standpoint with your checklist, the top things that I would definitely make sure that you would want to do is checking your stats, right? Really seeing, okay, I'm seeing this type of video content is performing well, right? And I want to repeat that. Or, okay, I'm taking a look at my stats. And I see that by posting on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m., I'm really not seeing a lot of activity. I want to make sure that I'm not repeating posting at that time again. So out of anything that you're doing weekly, making sure that you check your stats. And also I would make sure like that you're posting at least one time with like a partner of some sort, or focusing on a certain like event that you're doing on a weekly basis to kind of generate some more buzz, right, in your Facebook channel. And then from your monthly checklist, definitely performing a social media audit and doing the goal setting out of all the ones that you see there. Even before you embark on doing any of these social media management tools, or any of the social media strategy suggestions, if I come back for that particular presentation, doing an audit is really crucial to see what is the health of your social media pages before you start moving forward and planning and doing experimentation. I have done a lot of audits. If you are interested in me helping you out with that, again, feel free to connect with me after the presentation. Tip number 4, relating to what you should do on a monthly basis, is doing your goal setting. And you want to make sure that they are SMART goals. I'm curious in terms of, go ahead, feel free to put in the chat box, how many of you have heard of SMART goals? Because SMART goals aren't just for social media or marketing. You can apply SMART goals to any aspect of your business. And if you're new to this concept, that's fine. But a lot of people who do know about SMART goals don't even know that they can actually apply this to make sure that they're increasing success with social media. So fantastic. I think I'm seeing a good majority so far who are in the chat box have heard of it. So specific, making sure that you're saying, I'm looking at gaining 50 followers a month on Facebook, right? So you can make sure that you can attain that versus like, I'd like to see an increased amount of followers on Facebook. Making sure that it's measurable. So whether it's through the platforms that you have themselves through Facebook, or you have to have some additional help with a social media management platform that you're able to actually measure if you're able to achieve that. So if I'm saying, okay, I want an extra 50 social media followers a month, I want to make sure that's achievable. If I'm only averaging 5 social media followers a month, that may not necessarily be an achievable goal for me. Making sure that it's relevant to what you're doing. So if most of my followers are not on Facebook, then that may not be necessarily a relevant social media goal that I'm going to do. And then making sure with the T that is timely. So giving myself kind of an end goal as to when I want to achieve this. So I'm going to give myself 30 days to make sure that I can achieve this. So I want you to think about what you are doing with your social media channels. Even if you haven't already launched one yet, think about one social media SMART goal that you want to implement this week. So I would love to see them in the chat box as we're moving along and progressing with this presentation. I think it'd be really great for everybody to see some brainstorming because I think one of the big things I like to really encourage is, with us being in business, having nonprofits, we don't necessarily always have to learn from what our competitors are doing. Sometimes even doing some brainstorming and idea generation with community partners to kind of help each other out is really helpful as well too. So think about a SMART social media goal. And if you don't want to put in the chat box, just something I want you to walk away with thinking like, okay, after Carly's presentation, I'm really going to think about doing these 5 points for my one goal that I want to see some success in my platform. So tip number 5 is creating a social media content calendar. When I was coaching my clients, a lot of what I would hear is, I'm just posting something because, kind of time escape for me, and I'm just posting for the sake of, I feel compelled that I have to put something up, right? So what I want to encourage you to do is kind of being more proactive, and this will help with your social media strategy as well, is really choosing a social media content calendar that's going to be helpful for specifically you, or collaborating with whoever your social media manager is and communicating with your goals, right? And also, especially if you are a nonprofit, having a social media content calendar will also help you more effectively. And a further on tip, communicate your social media findings to your board members and your stakeholders. So just a little brief part with the social media strategy here. So your content calendar should contain platforms that you're on, and you don't have to be on every platform, even though there's a tremendous pressure to do that. Do one platform first and do it well, then move on to the next. But at least what I wanted you to have as a takeaway today, right, is just a general ballpark number, right? And how many times per day, per week, you should be on some of these individual platforms, and that you should make sure that you're stratifying them on your calendar, that you're not just like, okay, I've got to post on social media today. And then within those platforms, so kind of what I mean by network. So for example, on LinkedIn, right, I'm going to post on Thursdays because I know a lot of people are going to be on LinkedIn on Thursdays during the business hours. And then this is the copy I'm going to include. I'm going to upload the image so I have everything in one place, or also if your social media manager is doing it, it's all in one place for you to review and approve, right? Here are the links that I'm going to be using. Here are some of the partners that I may mention, as long as it provides value to that post, hashtags, and if there's a certain holiday, right, that's associated with that post, that would be, again, beneficial with driving engagement. So these are all the different elements that you should think about inputting with your social media content calendar. Now we're going to very briefly talk about some of the social media platforms here. So thinking about, do you want to have this? And I've worked on a lot of these. I've done Google and Outlook calendar, social media content calendars. I've done them on spreadsheets. You can, if you're only on Facebook, you can kind of even do a very loosely based social media content calendar on Facebook. And I've worked in terms of previous companies. I've also worked on Hootsuite and Social Studios Marketing Cloud's social media content management tool. Tip number 6, making the most out of your budget. When I would have clients come up to me, a lot of people immediately thought of ads when it comes to your budget, but actually ads are going to be a very small component to your budget. What you should also really be thinking intentionally about is all the other aspects that you're seeing here, particularly the two on the left, your content creation and your training and human resources. So how much money are you going to have to invest in good photography and video, production costs, paying copywriters, kind of make sure that you're getting your branding voice along the way, training and human resources. Are you going to have to pay an intern or a social media manager? Are you going to have to pay for learning on LinkedIn Learning for their professional subscription? Talking about Hootsuite Academy, what are you going to have to pay for to improve your skill sets to make sure that your business can grow? And then talking about, do you need some help with, for example, Neil Patel's Uber Suggest, Hootsuite in terms of that monthly subscription, making sure that you're embedding all of that in. And then lastly, advertisements, not only like your paid ads, right? And sometimes just doing $25 for a 4-day time span over the weekend can be a really kind of inexpensive experimental way of investing your time. But also what would have to be taken a closer look at if you're going to be going into the realm of, say, influencer campaigns and what that's going to involve as well. Tip number 7, key performance indicators. So you can be doing the top 6, but if they're not aligned with your business SMART goals or your KPIs with your business, you may not see the results that you're looking for. And I know we talked about one of those qualities of being a funnel marketing manager as a social media manager. And this is what I'm talking about with funnel marketing. What social media posts, and you can even stratify this on your social media content calendar, like, okay, this post is going to be an attract post. This post is going to be an engage post, and this post is going to be a conversion post. And I really wanted to make sure that you walked away today with at least 2 examples of what that would look like with each of those steps with that funnel. So, what is the goal? What is the KPI on your social media channel? And how exactly can you measure it? And so I know 1 or 2 of you mentioned about driving traffic to your site. And I think this is one of the big things that we forget about social media. And just a little bit of strategy here is a lot of what I tend to see on small business and nonprofit sites is a lot of conversion, like donate now, sign up now, when this should be a smaller percentage of the posts that you're doing, because you want to cultivate relationships and build that community with them before you're funneling with that final conversion. So tip number 8, so the KPIs linked to your ROIs. So what is your return on investment? How does social media exactly help you? And this is what you should be analyzing and tracking, whether it's yourself or you're working with your team. As I mentioned before, you want to make sure you're identifying your KPIs, aligning social media goals with your business goals. You want to make sure you're tracking results and assigning values. And lastly, you want to make sure you're analyzing your results to make sure, again, that the investment that you've been putting into these social media posts are going to be worth your time. Social media can help you in many ways: your brand reputation, risk reduction, customer retention, brand association, exposure, trust, community building, and one of the key things is customer education as well. So you can get a lot of meaningful interactions out of doing your social media, which may not necessarily equate into, say, sales. So now I know a lot of you wanted to hear more about the social media management tools. So let's just spend a few minutes here brainstorming together. So I would love to hear social media management tools that you're already using. And these could be content calendar tools. This could be social media listening tools. This could be video, photo apps that you're using to help yourself out. Feel free to put in the chat box. I would love to see what you're using, what's worked well for you, what you're kind of struggling with. So feel free to put those in the chat box, and let's talk about some of the tools that we have here. So social media management, there's a lot of tools that you can use. I heavily use Canva. The presentation that you see today is Canva. I know a lot of you asked, what have I used for video? Primarily Canva. I've also used Animoto. I also use stock videos as well, whether it's through Alamy or other stock photo sites. So I'm seeing, yep, Camtasia can be great for videos. I'm seeing HubSpot, Hootsuite, Canva, excellent. Other graphic design tools, which would also be considered social media management. What's also great about Canva is you can actually schedule social media posts to go out with Canva as well. So Canva, for those of you who don't know, there's free trial, there's also a professional paid trial. Canva, you can help create graphic designs for GIFs, different Instagram posts. They'll have those social media graphic posts already sized for you. And if you do the professional version, you can easily magically resize them to go out on other campaigns as well. Seeing a lot of Adobe. Adobe has some really great apps to use, like Adobe Photoshop for kind of improving your photos as well. Canva can help you with photo editing, as well as PicMonkey. Hootsuite is something I used when I was over at the SBDC, which really helped us with the amount of interns that we have. I know one of the questions that I saw was, if you have multiple social media accounts, Hootsuite can definitely help you with that. As well as Social Media Studio. A lot of the bigger name social media management platforms will allow you to have not only multiple channels, right, where you can manage LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook, but when I was at the SBDC, I was managing the KU SBDC and the PA SBDC account as well. So I mentioned Animoto. Adobe Spark is also another really good video tool as well. You know, some video tools you can use where it's kind of, you know, centering on yourself or a human object. Then you have things like Animoto, Adobe Spark, where it can be kind of more animated with like a voiceover. It's also really like an experimentation, right, in terms of what your audience is going to respond to. So sometimes it's good to experiment with a free platform before moving over to a paid platform.
Hey, Carly, Hannah also put CapCut in there to edit TikTok and reel content.
Excellent. Great. I know I only had so much room to, again, that's why that can be a whole nother presentation itself. So that's why I love to see kind of the sharing and brainstorming of what works well for everybody. And everybody has different learning curves. Some people find the Adobe interface a lot more robust than, say, Canva, but then some people like the drag and drop advantages of Canva's interface as well. And I know in terms of time, we're at 6:53, and I want to make sure I have time for questions. So tip number 10 is, what should I include in my social media report? So after you're done with all the 9 tips, this is kind of how it all ends up together. So this social media report is good for, even again, if it's just you, as a reflection of your social media growth, or again, as a really great communication tool with your employees and staff, even if they're not helping you out with social media. Or again, if you have stakeholders such as a board with communicating your results. So when you're choosing a format for your social media reports, really trying to understand who is your audience. So for example, doing it on Excel spreadsheet can really help show through graphs what your growth trajectory is. PDF can be a bit easier when sharing with a team through email. When I was working with my library, and the SBDC, I shared that a lot via PDF. Another corporation I worked with, we shared our reports through presentations like this over Zoom. So in that case, I would use a PowerPoint. I will say Canva has some really great tools to communicate social media reports with, whether it's presentation or PDF format, where you can kind of just plug in your information. What should it include on your social media report? An analytics overview and a platform breakdown. So you're talking about strategy, your metrics, your average number of followers, average number reach. The MOM stands for month over month. How are you doing this month compared to last month? What was your best performing post? Where were your growths and wins, and some anecdotal insights, right? And then finally, what are your key learnings? So creating a SWOT analysis. And again, I would be interested in the chat box. How many of you have heard of a SWOT analysis? And again, when I've coached business clients in the past, some people have heard of doing a SWOT analysis, but again, just didn't think like, hey, you know, I can apply that to my marketing and my social media. So for those of you who have not heard of SWOT, that's your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I definitely encourage you to employ and apply using SWOT to your social media as well. Phenomenal. I'm seeing a lot of you who have used SWOT. And if you haven't, I'm so glad you're hearing about it now, because it can be a really helpful tool to reflect on yourself and analyze on your competitors as well too. So I covered 10 tips for you today, and I'm really hoping out of all these 10 tips, before we get into questions, that you're walking away hopefully with one thing that you're hopefully going to try in your own social media platforms. And I would love for you to share it in the chat box, because this will really also help me with doing this presentation in the future, to kind of focus on what people really found valuable for this. I know some of you may think about it, so let's, do contributions in chat. You know, what are you going to use as a takeaway? One thing that you learned in terms of social media management, and then also opening it up for questions as well. So feel free in the question and answer box to start sending your questions. I want to leave you with this quote. And this can apply to any social media platform. So Facebook is a discovery model platform. Your primary goal with social media is to make sure that your audience is happy. Remember, my background is psychology and consumer behavior. You want to make sure that you're evoking a feeling with your consumers. So with all this social media management that you're doing, you're only going to get a return of investment on your time if you make sure that you have meaningful and quality content for your audience, okay? And I know some of you are thinking about questions now, and I would love, again, to hear some of the different strategies, if not in the chat box now, but feel free to connect with me via my email address, csimonconsulting@gmail.com, or my LinkedIn. You can just look me up at Carly E. Simon, and I would love to connect with you. So Dave, I want to say thank you again for having me here. And if anybody has any last minute questions, I'll be happy to go over a little extra time if you have the time.
So for those of you who aren't currently working with a mentor, and I know a number of you are because I recognize a number of the names in here, feel free to reach out to SCORE. Our address is on here, and again, you will see this at the when you get the replay. Reach out, and based on the area of expertise that you're looking for, or perhaps geography or some other attribute, you should be able to identify a mentor. I'm sure we will do everything we can to help you out in that regard. And let me look here real quick, and then you can reach out for any general information as well into our SCORE mailbox, and that's also listed on the screen, and that will also be included in the follow-up. All of our services are currently remote, and which is good news, bad news. Eventually we'll get back to in person, I'm sure, but for now we're able to handle a number of clients doing remote mentoring, and so we'll look to continue to do that.